Welcome back to another episode of the MC Squared Conspiracy Podcast. My name is Simon.
I'm Chance.
Today, we're going to talk about Operation LAC. In our last episode, we talked about Jeffrey Epstein. And in our next episode, it's going to be a top 5 episode, but we don't know about what yet. So if you have any ideas, throw them our way. Before we get into the subject for today, we'd like to thank our patrons. They pay for our RSS hosting fees. They pay for our beer. They pay for our pizza, which we don't have this time because we always forget it. But we do have beer. I'm too... we have low production budgets. I like to think it's high because we record in a nice space, but it's actually quite low. And every time you said this time, but we always have a low production value.
That's true.
And so we're drinking Smirnoff Ice that is from the 4th of July. It's like
red, white, and berry.
It was $6 for a 6-pack. So I couldn't turn that down.
Yeah, let's be honest.
So our budget is we're $4 in right now. If you add it all up, it gets more expensive. But we are both on our second beer, and we're going to do a beer opening in the middle as sort of an intermission.
That'll be fun.
But anyhow, today, Operation LAC. So explain to me.
So Operation LAC was a U.S. Army Chemical Corps operation. Basically, it focused around dispersal of microscopic zinc cadmium sulfide. Hard word to say for me, apparently, after 2 beers.
Apparently.
It was to test what biological attacks in the air could be on our coastal regions. So basically, they did exactly what they were testing for, which was they tested chemical warfare on our own populace in our own cities.
Really?
So, yeah. So it was an interesting setup. So that's the basic, know-how of what it was. So it came down to where they tested over United States and Canada, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it started off in the 1950s. I think actually 1950 and 52 and like 57. And they just started over with simulated attacks on like San Francisco Bay was one of them. And then, basically South Carolina, Georgia, North Sea, East Coast of Britain. So it was all over the place. And it came down to where they were testing basically like anthrax and stuff to simulate different biological components, how widespread the damage would be, as well as the possible fallout. Because at that time, nuclear warfare was a big problem. So
when was this? One more time.
1950.
1950. Was that prior to or after the treaty against chemical warfare? I wonder.
I believe prior to.
That was post-Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was the 60s,
Agent
70s.
Orange and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Which, again, was a great thing that we did to our own people.
Yeah.
So.
What an excellent thing we do to our people.
Just to test out. Yeah. It's like the mad
you gotta
scientist
test on
situation.
somebody, and we as people freak out if you test on animals or something like that. So they're like, well, we got to test on people.
Yeah, the only logical
and just not
thing,
tell them about it.
The only logical thing is to step it up.
That's interesting to me. I always like these stories because all of my conspiracy stuff is generally like anti-government and that sort of thing is what I'm really interested in. And just this has been proven, right? That this happened.
Yeah.
This was declassified.
No, this is not even declassified. They told the residents prior to that they were doing this. And then after they were like, oh, by the way, we've already done it. And then later they were like, oh, by the way,
okay,
what we dumped in your air turns out it was actually bad.
Oh, so they didn't tell them that they were like, this could be harmful.
No, they didn't realize it would be harmful until later.
Interesting.
They used a complete chemical. I think it was one of the chemicals, if I remember correctly, was Bacillus globigio.
Sure.
I mean, I can't pronounce medical word things, but basically it was we're going to refer to it as BG. And if you guys would like to know how to spell that, Google it.
How? If you can't spell it, how do you Google it?
Dang it. Anyways, but they dumped this to simulate what anthrax would look like. So it had a lot of chemical properties that were similar to anthrax. No biggie. Can't be a bad
No
thing.
biggie.
Can't be a bad thing. It was considered a contaminant with little health consequences to humans. However, later on, I don't know the exact year, they found out that it was considered by the CDC a human pathogen. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's probably, not good.
Sure. Oh my goodness.
So they also used the zinc cadmium, I think it was. Zinc cadmium sulfide. So that one was used as well as that BG, and it was had adverse health effects as a result. Basically, the U.S. National Research Council stated in part, after an exhaustive independent review requested by Congress, we have found no evidence that exposure to zinc cadmium sulfide at these levels could cause people to become sick.
However, but lo and behold, they were wrong.
Yeah, then later they were accused of literally using the country as an experimental laboratory. So basically they turned into mad scientists, and they were like, we used it on animals. We didn't see them die immediately, so we'll use it on people.
I would say, you said they were accused of that. I would say that is a very fair accusation, because they did just test it on the citizens.
Yeah. And then later on, the National Libraries of Medicine's ToxNet database and the EPA reported that cadmium sulfide was classified as a probable human carcinogen. So basically it can cause cancer.
It's probable.
It's probable. You know why I find amusing about these institutions that do research? They always say it's possible. Now that might be for liability issues, but it also might be because somebody up there is like, shut the heck up, don't tell them that that's going to directly cause cancer because we did this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't just say everybody's going to get
He says
cancer.
it's probable. It's like, so that means you have figured out it's caused cancer in some people.
Or at least it's high enough to where you say it's probable.
Do you happen to have the number on hand? Like, how many people were affected by this?
I don't have the number on hand. I'll try to
But you said it was citywide project.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, in 1950, I think it was, they did the entire San Francisco Bay. So
wow.
That's an entire city's worth where they dumped it. And then the wind picked it up and carried it elsewhere.
That'll happen.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, one of the things was basically 1957 to 58. They were dumping this stuff all over the place on Army C-119, so, which is considered the flying box car, by the way.
Really? Fun fact.
Yeah, they've dumped pretty much a lot everywhere. I guess the best way to put it is that chemical warfare on your own people.
So who was it that okayed this dumping?
I don't even know. It was just an operation that was developed by the Pentagon to test the effects.
So nobody has to authorize it, right?
I guess.
They don't, who questions that?
It's a bunch of people in Pentagon who are like, hey, let's do this. And then
we've got airplanes. We've got chemicals.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bored on this Friday evening. Why don't we just, put two and two together?
Pretty much.
Interesting. Again, this is my first time hearing about this, but I like these stories. Because you can't look at them and be like, so many people are so pro, they think that nobody could ever wrong them. But then the government itself, right there, we know for a fact.
Well, this all ties into the weather control thing. It's why I kind of wanted to go with this. Is because,
really?
Well, it ties into there because they claim that there's no such thing as weather control, that they're not doing chemtrails and stuff like that.
Right.
But then they have programs like this where literally that's what they were doing.
Right.
It's not a question. They literally came forward and said, hey, we're going to do this. Good luck, everybody else.
We talked about that in an earlier episode, and I've been considering doing another episode on it. If you guys haven't heard that episode, go back and check it out. We did one on climate control, and I think personally it was my favorite episode of all time. And it's because of how obvious climate control is. And I know that people like to look at it and laugh at it because Basically because our government has constantly told us that it's not real. And so people laugh at the idea that it might be real. But meanwhile, other superpowers around the world are telling their citizens that they are doing it and that it is real, and they have proved that it is real. So if all these other countries are able to do it, why is it so absurd that our country would be able to do it? Our government constantly tells people that it's not even possible. And we have like documented cases of them doing it and like accidentally redirecting hurricanes to hit the town of Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
This was proof. This was General Electric.
And that was a company. That wasn't even the government
Exactly.
doing it.
And so you're right. This kind of, I didn't see it at first, but it kind of does tie in because it's another thing where people like could not possibly fathom the fact that maybe their government would do that to them.
Yeah.
But then they have, like on multiple occasions.
They have. They told you about it before. They told you about it after.
They
and
told
then
you.
nobody cared.
That's why it's
except
funny.
for people directly affected by it.
That's why it's funny, because they told us they were going to do it, and then they did it, and then it turned out to be bad, and people were like, oh, they couldn't have done that on purpose. It's like, what do you mean? They didn't tell you it was bad until people started talking about they had cancer.
Yeah.
It's too late to say it
Cases
wasn't.
came forward. I think there's supposed to be some type of lawsuit
You
still
think they
going
would
on.
have told you if you wouldn't have come forth and said that you had cancer and proved that you caused it?
Yeah.
They're not going to admit to that. They probably knew it was bad all along.
See, it all ties in because, like we were talking about, chemtrails, weather, all that, directing hurricanes, Agent Orange.
Yeah.
Like, all of this happens, and I don't want to beat people up, but people just don't care as much as they used to, I think. Like,
Yeah.
that this has happened in the past, and they think that it's not going to happen now, but it is.
It's happening now.
Yeah, it's happening
It's happening,
right
and
now.
we're constantly learning about this sort of thing happening recently in our past.
I just think the
And so
government's
it's like-
less public about it. They
Sure.
just kind of just do it without
I mean,
permission.
I'm saying all throughout the last like 100 years, we'll hear about something terrible that they did in the prior years, and we're constantly learning new things that they did in prior years. So why can't people fathom the idea that maybe right now it's still happening and we just won't figure out about it till later?
50 years from now.
And then a couple $1 million in lawsuits. What's that? It's your money anyhow. It's literally your tax money.
They started this program in 1950. They carried on until, I think, 58. So it was an 8-year program. Then in Vietnam, which not that long ago, they were Agent Orange. Then in the 90s, I think there was another one. I don't remember right offhand. I'll try to figure it out and tell you guys in the post podcast. But there was another chemical issue where they tested it on the public and then it was released. I have it in my notes on my phone. I'll try to get it for the post podcast. Maybe we'll make a little episode out of it.
The post podcast.
Post podcast.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I was going to. Anybody who goes to our
Quick intermission.
I know, just right in the middle, just like why? Oh, we're only 13 minutes in. Either way, anybody who goes to our Patreon page and I almost said patronize us. Don't go to our Patreon page and patronize us, please. But
Or do it.
Anybody who gives patron, anybody who becomes a patron on Patreon, as in donates as little as $1 a month, gets instant access to all of our post-podcast, which is normally like a 20 to 30, sometimes 45-minute after the show. The show after the show.
It's a slight behind the scenes, a little bit of us talking,
podcast, yeah, where we talk about
some really off the wall discussions.
little behind the scenes. Sometimes we just discuss stuff that doesn't even really involve conspiracy at all, but we're told is interesting. And so if that sort of thing interests you after this, and you're just like, man, I love listening to these guys' podcast, you can head over there, and for as little as $1 a month, you get more podcasts from us, and also the ability to win stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, hopefully, in the future. And
sometimes, hopefully, in the
sometimes,
future.
hopefully,
We've got
in the
the
future.
mugs. We've got the.
I know it's gonna happen. It's been a rough month, but anyhow. Okay.
So yeah, if you want to become a patron, we'd love to have you.
We'd love to be drinking better beer right now.
Oh yeah, that's what the money goes towards: our hosting fees, our beer,
And the beer
our
and the pizza, as we said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyhow, the government, they lie sometimes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
I wonder, so
I'll give you a couple
really
examples.
quick on that note.
Oh, okay.
Not to interrupt,
No,
but
no.
because you said that, We did the Jeffrey Epstein episode last time, and
yeah.
like tons of channels and stuff are being taken down for the Epstein one.
Really?
Yeah, and like YouTube videos and stuff, and it's because they're like a bit more blatant about things, I feel like. But we just did one, and like 2 different people retweeted our episode on Twitter, and they were like, "There they go." They're going to be taken down now.
Was it the C word?
I think the C word might have, and like 2 other people did, but they retweeted it saying like that was the end, and we still here. So, you know,
You won't put us down.
I know, and it's because like it seems negative at times. We preach a lot of like the government hates you sort of stuff, and
I don't think so.
I feel like we do, and because we talk about them like lying all the time, and sometimes
do.
those are like the channels to get taken down. So I like to just like reiterate the fact that it's an open discussion.
It is.
And the fact that I could have extreme opinions or you have extreme opinions, we're just giving you information off the top of our heads.
If you don't agree with us, let us know why.
I would like to know why.
We love
Send me a
discussions.
comment and we'll respectfully reply.
Yeah.
And probably even bring it up in an episode because we're bored.
We're not going to be rude about it. We're not going to. It's a discussion. I think too many people get rude about discussions. And
I would like for people to come and get rude on our discussions so we can respond to them in a not rude manner.
All right, fair enough.
Anyhow, what you got?
So, just to hit a little bit more on Operation LAC and get back to subject a little bit, I appreciate you guys' patience on that. So I'll give you some numbers. December 2nd, 1957, they basically were going to dump it over, what was it, the Northeast, I think? I don't remember. Michigan, I think it was. I think it was Michigan. But it came
Probably Michigan.
I'm pretty sure it was Michigan, if I remember correctly. I do try to recall most of my notes from memory, which is probably a terrible way to go about it. But,
Yeah, but
like I said,
that's
it's a
how it be.
discussion. Like, I'm not here to read off of a script kind of thing. So,
It's true.
but basically, when they dropped it, the cold air rushing in from Canada ended up picking it up, and it went like 1,200 miles away from like the original location, and took it all up to Canada, where they didn't mean to drop it, and it hit a lot of people on the way.
in the wrong country. Right.
In a completely different country, as well as all the people on the way. Like
So that
So-
brings me back to the weather control thing because of how bad we apparently are at it. That's
Yeah.
probably why they don't talk about it, because once we accidentally hit Savannah, Georgia with a hurricane, and once we accidentally spread harmful material into Canada.
oh god,
The 2 most peaceful places on the planet.
yeah. But so at the end of this whole test in December, they didn't account for the cold air or how air moved, I guess, at the time.
Apparently.
But 2, after it moved 1,200 miles away, hit Canada, all this stuff. I think it hit like some Aberdeen, Texas point too. But at the end of it, they all like just said, "Well, it was a success."
That worked.
They literally reported it as a success that they hit a completely different country with like this biological weapon, which they at the time were just like, it doesn't hurt anybody.
But the idea was there.
Yeah, the idea was there.
It doesn't hurt anybody. It only resembles anthrax.
Yeah, it only resembles anthrax in the way it moves and acts and can kill you.
Didn't hurt anybody.
So that was one of the things that I thought was it Minnesota? I don't care anymore.
I bet you it's Michigan. They get a lot of that crap.
Yeah, they do. There was a good one about Michigan a while back I was going to talk about. But so that was the 1957 one. And then they had another one in 52 that was like a couple trials in South Carolina and Georgia, like I said. I think they called it Operation Dew. I remember that because it's Mountain Dew. And I was thinking, do the dew.
Okay, sure.
So I don't know why.
I got you.
But they concluded that like long range aerosol clouds could cover hundreds of miles pretty easy. Like so. Like,
Right.
and under certain meteorological conditions, they could release it over, like, say, the ocean and hit a country if they wanted to, if they could actually get it to work right. So they're not even directly attacking the country itself per se. They can just use like international airways to like dump it on countries we don't like if we wanted to in the future.
Yeah.
That was basically what they came up with. They were like, we don't even have to actually like attack the country directly. We just dump it on their borders and they'll die.
There you go.
So that was funny that we were basically not.
What
gonna-
year was that at the time?
That was like back in 52. So, and then I think I reported the San Francisco Bay for 1950. Those were the
Yep.
three major known like ones I think that I remember reading up on. So
That's a lot, though.
yeah, those are the three like historic ones where like they're in the news. People are still fighting the government on it, trying to say that they've gotten cancer or had health defects due to it and stuff like that. So
Meanwhile, we've got this front going like we're recovering as a nation or something like that. And it's like, you guys are like currently fighting lawsuits about the fact that you harmed a bunch of your own citizens all at once using chemicals.
yeah,
They don't like to talk about that.
no, they don't really like to talk about that.
They're
But-
like, that didn't really involve us. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. It ended up being shorter amount of information, like factually, than I was probably going for. But this is where the discussion portion comes in.
Sure.
The real question is, I don't think that they really meant to hurt people per se in their own countries. I mean, what do you think?
No, I don't think they intentionally hurt people. But I think, like, I don't think that was the mission, was to hurt people.
Yeah.
But I could potentially foresee the fact that maybe some people who were in the department that authorized this, they probably knew that it wasn't the best thing they could do. They probably knew at some point, because they study these things. If they
Yeah.
were picking these very specific compounds to release into the atmosphere, you know they tested it on people and probably animals.
Yeah.
And so somebody along the line, it might not have been the point to hurt people, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody knew that it potentially could and they did it anyhow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why would they intentionally go out and set out to hurt people?
Well, and see, I think you're right as well. I don't think they specifically went out to hurt people, but it came down to where I think it was acceptable numbers.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. Acceptable numbers.
And I mean, we see that every day.
You do.
Like everyone knows we're up in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're based. Out in Airway Heights area, the fire department for the Air Force Base out there was doing like controlled burns and stuff, and they were using flame retardant stuff on it, and it got into the water. And literally for like a month straight, they were like, "Do not drink the water, do not drink it." And they were like just like opening fire hydrants to
You're
drain
still
it
not
out.
supposed to drink the water in Airway Heights?
Yeah, but they said that it is now within acceptable parameters for you to drink it.
That means they're like, maybe it could hurt somebody,
Yeah.
but we don't think that it will, and so we're going to tell you guys it's okay to drink it. And you can look at that two ways. You can look at that by saying that's irresponsible, by telling people they can drink the water even though it might hurt them. Or at the same time, you can look at it and be like, oh, well, they think that it's acceptable levels. And like, they don't
Yeah.
think people are going to get hurt. There's two ways to look at that.
Exactly. And they measure it by parts per million and stuff, but there's still fire retardant in the drinking water.
Yes.
Like,
And you are still not supposed to drink it, but they have stated that it is like, it's acceptable.
we talked about this with fluoride.
That's true.
Who really like does the research, breaks down, and then 50 years from now, we learn that the acceptable level was nowhere near what it should have been.
Somebody's making a lot of money off of it.
Yeah,
no
something.
doubt, somewhere. But you talked about the Air Force Base and the fire retardant.
Yeah.
I heard a conspiracy about that specifically. And
Oh.
so if anybody's in the area and they know about the drinking water thing in Airway Heights, you better follow us to the Post podcast, because I'm going to give you a local conspiracy
Oh, that'll be good.
that I had heard.
I have not heard this one.
I know,
so
I
that'll be
haven't
fun.
told you. That's why. So
You were saving it.
You're going to hear about it in the Post
I'm the
podcast. I know. It's not like I was saving it because I didn't know you were going to bring that up.
Oh, okay.
But
so
I
was kinda
forgot
good.
until right now. So we'll talk about it in the Post podcast.
So I'm gonna, just for our viewers out there who don't know what zinc cadmium sulfide is, it's I'll just tell you real quick. It's basically a chemical, It's has a slight fluorescent property, which makes it easy to track, I guess, in radars and like lighting and stuff like that.
Makes sense.
I'm going to just read directly from Wikipedia because it'll sound smarter.
Well, that's the most reliable source.
From Wikipedia. Bioaccumulation of this chemical may occur along the food chain, for example, the plants and in seafood. Long-term or repeated exposures are expected to have harmful effects on the kidneys, bones, and respiratory tract, resulting in kidney impairment, osteoporosis, and chronic inflammation of the respiratory tract.
Well, who needs bones?
Yeah.
Or a respiratory system?
Oh.
I mean, that's
my
all.
body automatically breathes. I don't need to think
That's
about
all
it.
third-party stuff. You don't really need any of that. So
now I don't know how long the government knew these effects. I imagine, like I said, everything's just kind of done on a whim. And then 50 years from now, like several people have investigated a chemical and they go, whoa. This is bad.
Right.
After our medical technology is advanced enough, we have now learned that this will kill you, like kind of thing, or at least cause extreme harm and stuff. And then it's like, how many people were affected? And no one's even like saying, hey, our bad.
right, yeah.
I think that's a big political move too. Like, I think they always tell politicians never admit fault.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
just
that's part of,
say that sucks.
that's kind of how it is. And like everybody, I feel like, has this to some extent.
Yeah.
Maybe you did something wrong, but like nobody's going to know you did it wrong unless you tell them.
Yeah.
Or so you think. And so when are you going to make a big move, like admitting to your country that you had accidentally maybe given a bunch of people cancer? Thousands of people, maybe?
Yeah, it was in the air. You were breathing this stuff in.
Exactly.
In massive cities.
And so, like, I get it to an extent. Why would you bring that up until other people bring it up?
That's a tough
But then
subject.
once other people brought it up and started doing independent research on it, and they realized, you kind of got to admit it at that point.
Yeah.
But they still don't talk about it.
No.
Like you said, there are still lawsuits going on involving this.
There's people who are still to this day affected by it.
True. We did an episode on Monsanto where we talked about prior lawsuits involving Monsanto and their Roundup pesticides causing cancer in people. And now, here in the media, are people still suing Monsanto because
Bayer now.
Bayer Monsanto.
Totally called that, by the way.
The Bayer Monsanto company suing them because they think that Roundup caused cancer.
Oh,
it's
and-
still happening, and it's been happening for a long time.
And Bayer changed the chemical formula of Roundup so they can say
Right.
it's a different product.
And like that was in the media, but for a very, very short period of time. You don't hear about it anymore.
The only reason we heard about it was probably because we did so much research on Monsanto.
Exactly.
And stuff. That's not going to come into someone's feed that's not actively looking that stuff up.
Right,
Because
exactly.
Google isn't going to recommend something you don't look up.
That is true. And so like, and it is a bit more in the media now. If you Google it, you can find recent stories and stuff that's just updates on the lawsuits that are going on and that sort of thing. But what I'm saying is all of this, the pesticides were approved. If you want to sell a pesticide commercially, it has to be approved by the government for you to sell it to the citizens.
Yeah.
And so it got approved. And then they sold it to people. And suddenly thousands of people are claiming it could have caused cancer. And it was in the news for like a couple of weeks. And then it died off again.
Yeah.
And these people are still fighting these lawsuits every single day because what Roundup potentially did to them, or these chemicals that they had laid on the San Francisco Bay potentially did to them, altered their life.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
they're fighting this on a daily basis, not just trying to get money from the government, but trying to get fair. Honestly, it's just like they don't talk about it very much.
No, they don't.
The government approves something, Roundup, that is causing cancer in people, Roundup still, but you don't hear about it in the news anymore because it's bad for the government. Which is why people think the podcast is going to get taken down. But we haven't gained enough ground for that yet.
Oh, no, we're not.
If we
big enough
do,
or
though,
important
that'll
enough.
just prove it. So everybody who's like out there, if we get taken down eventually, we're not saying anything terrible. We're literally just talking about facts openly. If it gets taken down, that just goes to prove it. They will take something down that they think negatively reflects them, even if it is the truth.
Yeah. And it comes down to where they don't like alternative news.
They do not.
Fox, CNN, all those basic news, they report what they think is going to sell, because at the end of the day, they're a company.
Right.
And places like us who just do a general discussion.
TV just turned off. That was weird. This never happened. Yeah, new computer. You never know.
Yeah.
Something.
New motherboard.
Go
Sleep.
on.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, alternative news. I get it. Some people sound like way out there. Lizard people. I love them.
I love lizard people.
I do love lizard people. Please.
Please, if you're out there.
But it comes down to where, yeah, alternative news, I think, is just when people start talking about something and people start listening, and
It maybe negatively reflects on them.
that's not net neutrality.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
I get it, though. It's easy to get rid of. When major news networks dominate, and that's what everybody listens to, you just squash the little stories that come up here and there of people talking about it.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
I get why it's happening. We're going to take an intermission that you guys aren't going to notice because we edited it out.
I'll make you know.
But we're just going to grab another beer and do our little beer review for this episode. So we'll be right back, y'all.
Yeah.
It's not. Okay. And we're back. You guys didn't even notice because, like we said,
It was instantaneous.
it was instantaneous. We edit that stuff out.
Apparently.
Today, for our intermission beer,
Is it?
I don't know what it is. It's
got alcohol in it.
It is our alcoholic beverage for today is a Not Your Father's Lemonade. I've had the root beers,
Oh, yeah.
and they're all right. I'm not really a licorice fan, so root beer doesn't really do it for me. And I've also just been informed that this is not a twist top,
That is correct.
and so I'm gonna need a bottle opener for this. For people that don't know, we do crappy beer reviews in the middle of every episode recently, and it's really just as an excuse to drink more beer because we were like not drinking enough beer
Yeah.
when we were doing these episodes.
I think our first 5 episodes, we ended up like, I think we'd sip on a beer for like.
It's because we'd
halfway
talk and
through.
we'd forget to drink, but now we drink one before, and then we drink one in the beginning, and then one in the middle, and then by the end it's perfect.
It is.
Apparently that's like the key number. I could go more.
3.
But, yeah, apparently I could go more, but we don't have the time. But anyhow, I'm gonna give it a sip test.
I'm smelling it first.
I gave it a sniff test first, just like you did.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Okay.
There's something a little bit more than lemonade going on in there.
I smell that. I'm gonna taste it though. Do you taste anything?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Do you have a cold or something?
Oh, we're not drinking out of the frosted mugs.
That's why.
What the heck is going on? Hang on.
The world is
We'll be right
ruined.
back. Okay.
It literally upset him enough to where he went and got busted. Mugs.
It didn't upset you enough, apparently. But as you know, I like that. Let's see if we can get the mics to pick that up.
I was actually concerned that it sounded like pee.
I think it's definitely coming through.
Oh god, I'm pouring wrong.
We should
Yeah,
do
tip
this.
it to the side.
Should do this every time. It probably doesn't sound like anything, and it's just dumb on the other side. But here, it was really dramatic and
It was.
good.
And now I can
I
smell it.
love the frosted mug.
I do too.
I can smell it now, like you said. Okay.
I like it.
Big difference.
as being kind of just
That's me choking. It's not strong. That's just me choking.
long tube apparently.
You actually like, it doesn't taste very alcoholic at all.
No, it tastes like
For people who don't like the taste of beer but want to get drunk, this could be an option. Compared to like Mike's, which is what we're normally drinking if we're
Yeah.
drinking a lemonade beverage. It tastes just as strong, but there's not as much lemon flavor.
it's much more subtle.
It is subtle, which isn't, it's not a bad thing.
No, there's a taste to it that reminds me of something. Not quite like a
I taste what you're tasting, but I don't know what it tastes like.
Sour Patch?
Like the candy?
Warhead? A lemon warhead. That's what it tastes like to me. A lemon warhead.
does have that little extra sour
Sugary
bite
kind
at
of,
the end.
Yeah.
Like the coating on them, you get just a hint. Not that sour, because it's not really that sour.
No, it isn't.
It doesn't taste like much of anything to me. But this is the third beer.
Yeah.
And that tends to happen. So it's good though. I'm gonna continue drinking it.
All right.
Not a sponsor, clearly, because they wouldn't pay us for that review.
I don't know how anyone would ever pay
We'd
us
submit
for
that, and
anything.
they'd be like, "What? No, dude. No one's gonna drink it now."
They'd have to have us do like a test.
Yeah.
Like speaking of
We're
their,
giving honest opinions until someone pays us to give an unhonest opinion.
that sounds about right, actually.
That's what everybody does, I think. Anyhow,
It's like all those like Twitch and like YouTube streamers who are like, I'm reviewing this product. I've not been paid by them.
yeah, exactly. Not a sponsor. We don't have sponsors.
No, we don't have any.
We don't. Well, our patrons.
XR.
Our patrons are our sponsors.
And I love them.
They bought this for us.
They did.
And because of that, I care for them deeply because they buy me alcohol.
I mean, you can't
That's
really
incredible.
You can't get a better friend than that.
You can't. They're the best friends. We never see them. Never have to talk to them.
I see 3 of them.
Actually, yeah, I do. There's family on that list, but they buy us beer. That's cool. Anyhow, where do we leave off? We were hating on something or somebody.
Media.
The media. Okay. Let's hear it.
Oh, well, I guess we're going to get back into it. Operation LAC.
Right. We talked about Operation LAC recently. The second portion of the episode, post intermission beer, has more so just been a discussion about
Anything related.
not anything. We're keeping it on subject, but we kind of moved
related
on.
is,
We kind of moved on to the media,
Yeah.
and I like that direction. So
Well, it's
What do
so
you
I
think
guess
about
to be a little bit more broad about it.
Sure.
My big concern per se is that something like Operation LAC or the hurricane or any weather control
Hurricane. Yeah,
we'll
we
just
put them in the
refer
same
to
category.
it as the hurricane.
We put it in the same category.
My concern is that this stuff isn't taught in schools. It's not something you read about in history books. People talk about World War II, and that's obviously a huge thing.
Right.
But these little things, they get reported on temporarily for at the time kind of thing, and then they're lost to time. But it's important to remember that the media sources, I get it, they're current events kind of situations, but they tend to not really express what our interests are. There's
Sure.
so many companies out there that are trying to tailor everything we do online to what our search histories are and what they think is going to sell to us.
Right. And when you
Like-
say media service, you're not just talking like
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about like Fox,
CNN, Fox,
CNN.
not necessarily news stations, but like Facebook.
Yeah, those
Really,
are media.
all
Those are
these
media
large
services.
companies. They are. That's
Google
where
is a
most
media
people.
ser-
If
yeah.
you think about how many people actually get their news from Facebook,
And Google, Google
Yeah.
recommends news to you based on your region or your preferences.
Yes.
If you're a political person, it's going to recommend everything. When Trump
even
makes
if
a
you're
small
not
tweet,
political, dude, it won't leave me
It's like,
alone.
like Trump made a tweet. It's like, we know that at least 64% of Americans are going to want to know this, so push it out to so they're a media source, and that's why I mean when I say media source, anything that is directly trying to give you current events information.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because recently, and I say recently, but I actually don't know exactly how long ago it was, but the whole Facebook using your personal profile for advertising, we keep referencing old episodes, and it was totally unintentional. We did an episode on that, though. We just have enough episodes that
Maybe we should just name this as the Operation LAC slash old episode.
throwback to old episodes slash shameless self-promotion. But we did an episode on, it was called The Online You. It was actually
Yeah.
our very first episode
Very first
after our
episode.
introductory episode. And we don't watch the introductory episode
Nobody does.
because nobody should.
That was a terrible introduction.
We'll have to make another one or something. But anyhow, we kind of talked about Facebook and how it generates this online profile for who it classifies you as a person online.
They
It
even
is-
try to put it in a little fun little tile format
Yes.
of you're a family person, you're a political person, and they'll give you these little
Yeah.
tiles where it's like
and it is It's the online you is
Yeah.
what it is showing you. And I know it sounds dumb because I'm like telling people to go back to an old episode. And of course I would tell people to do that. But you should if you haven't heard it. And it's because we explained to you how you can go onto Facebook and you can go into the settings, deep into the settings.
Deep.
And you can see exactly who Facebook has defined you as. It has all of your interests that it has assigned you. Like mine, I'm not a sports guy. Never have been. Never have I liked or watched anything having to do with sports.
Yep.
But because of my age and the fact that I am male, assuredly,
Yeah, absolutely.
it meant
It
that
assumes that you're interested in
it
sports.
assumes that I was interested in sports.
And
So,
babies.
The NHL, NFL, all this stuff, the NBA, all of these things were in my interests, and you can click Y on them, and it will tell you why you're in that category. Talk about stereotyping. That's literally like what it does. And the reason these companies do that is because it's not...
They're trying to
It's
sell
not-
you a product.
They are stereotyping, but the reason they're doing it is because, like the lawsuit ended up, it's what he said. They make money off of ads. Mm-hmm. That's what they do.
Especially if you click on it.
Especially if you click on an ad. If the ads are effective, they make more money off of it. And so they have you classified as a person so that when they're running these ads, they can try to make the most money possible off of it, which makes sense. But it does bother me.
Yeah.
It does. It's
and-
because they are controlling. It's gotten to a point with Instagram, okay? I get 4 photos from people that I follow, right? And not in the order they were posted, but the order Instagram decides.
Yeah.
I get 4 photos from profiles that I follow, followed by 1 ad, followed by 4 more, followed by 1 more ad. So a fifth of the content I am seeing is intended to make the platform money.
Yeah.
That is the point.
20% of what you're looking at.
Is 100% just ads that they have decided I am likely to click on and they're likely to get paid for. That's how it works. We have run ads on our Facebook page, and I always find it very interesting because it's like they will tell you how many clicks it's going to get you
Yeah.
by dollar spent. That sort of thing. I like running Facebook ads. They never work. But I think it's an important place to put some of the money that we earn from doing this because we talk about this a lot.
Well, we're always interested by the numbers.
We're interested by the numbers. Sometimes it reaches thousands of people. Doesn't get any clicks. Still costs us the same amount of money, though. And those, when you pay for an ad like that, which we have, it'll show up in people's profiles just like any other ad you scroll by. It could be a crappy ad. When you come across like a really garbage ad, like one of ours, it's because really garbage people paid to put this ad in front of your face. And anybody can do it. We do it. As little as $1 a day.
Yep.
And normally
And
for
Facebook gets paid that.
and normally for us is most as $1 a day because we don't go any higher than that. The last one we ran, it charged me for it, but it never actually ran. Did you see that?
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, I don't know if you get the emails for the receipts for that, but I ran a $10 ad on one of our previous posts for our newest Jeffrey Epstein episode.
Oh, okay.
Because I figured that one was going to do good, and it did. So I was like, I'm going to run a $10 ad, just see what happens.
So they took your money and didn't promote it.
Took my money, and then when I went to it, it said it was active but hadn't been shown to a single person. It was 10 days, $10. 10 days later, it had been shown to 0 people, which means it couldn't have worked.
It means it was
That
taken down.
means nobody scrolled by it, even.
That means it was taken down.
That means it was taken down. They still charged me the $10.
They
And
still
so
charged you for
I
it.
wasn't going to fight them for that. I was like, whatever, that's what we do it for. And I learned something interesting. The fact that they won't show my Jeffrey Epstein episode, but they will continue to take my money. So I think
That's an important lesson.
that's an important lesson to learn, and I won't do that again.
Because you can't tell me people weren't talking about him.
People are
And
talking
weren't
about it. That's another thing, dude. You haven't heard anything about that in a while. His body was picked up by an unnamed associate.
Yep.
That was pretty much the end of that.
That's what I'm saying is that these things like the Operation LAC and all that, there is no history or textbook with it. The media doesn't talk about it. It's alternative news situations like us, YouTube videos, podcasts, like people who are interested in this kind of stuff and interested in the fact that nobody talks about it.
Right.
People are still to this day affected by these things, but no one's bringing it up as a point of, hey, you've got a crappy track
Right,
record
yeah.
here.
You see, like you said, you hear about these things like Agent Orange, Operation LAC, all
The
this
VA
stuff.
still fights
We're
a lot of
hearing
people.
about it more recently. And that is because we have had time to compile the information and have it readily available for people
Yeah.
to see.
You don't need to go to
when there's
WikiLeaks
current
for this kind of
conspiracies,
stuff.
there's current conspiracies and people shrug them off like it's not possible, or it couldn't have happened or whatever. But 20 years from now, when we have all the documents released due to something like the Freedom of Information Act or something like that, you might learn something.
Yeah.
It happens. It's, like you said, alternative news.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's important to get opinions from people for that reason.
I think that's what it is. And the discussion is what we like the most. We find things that are interesting to us and we think is interesting to you. We discuss it on the channel. And we'd love to get more discussion on your guys' side with like comments,
That's
questions,
true.
that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, that's all this is
That's
this
true.
happened in history, or we think
Or it's
this,
happening right now.
or it's happening right now, or hey, this is a conspiracy, and everybody kind of like looks at
It's like to
conspiracy.
talk about it.
Well, and everybody kind of looks at conspiracy as a bad light, like
Right.
if something's wrong with having a conspiracy. But everyone who has had a conspiracy, who was treated like a terrible person just because they wanted to talk about something they thought was important, and then it comes to light that it's real and it actually happened.
Yeah.
Like MK Ultra, Operation LAC, like,
Right.
all these things, and then like everyone's like, oh, and shrugs their shoulders and doesn't even think about the people who were talking about beforehand, whose lives may have been ruined at the time with like really big cover-ups and stuff like that, and
Sure.
things like that. Like,
It's kind of a good
it
note.
bugs me.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of a good note to end on. And I'm
Yeah.
going to kind of end it on an even darker note than that. But I'm going to build on that. I personally think, and I believe you think this as well, people who are affected by modern advertising, you've seen the commercials, just absolutely stupid.
Oh my God,
Or
yes.
only 5 seconds long. People that are affected by this, I think there's something wrong with you. And so if you can argue that, come over to our Facebook or our Twitter or our Patreon or right here on Podbean or iTunes or iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell me, like, fight
Yeah.
me, okay? I want to
give-
talk about it.
I'll
I think those advertisements, it's wrong that they work on people. It's wrong that they work on you if they work on you. And so I want you to come and argue that with me, and we'll talk about it. Person to person, not really, but
Well, through a message
we're
board.
not gonna fight. We're not those kind of people. But I'd like to talk to you, and then we will have a conversation about it and bring it up in one of our upcoming episodes.
Yeah, definitely.
Not the next one because it's a top 5.
Don't worry, we're not going to make fun of it.
We won't make fun of anybody.
That's
or,
not what we do.
I would like
Except
to have
when
an
it's the
open
government
discussion.
or a company
Yes, exactly.
or the media.
But anyhow,
People are people. We're not going to treat you like crap.
that's true. Anyhow, I kind of mentioned it. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. Those are probably the easiest places to message us. Maybe Facebook. I'd like to get more Facebook traffic. I
Yeah.
like our Facebook page. We've been sitting at like
51?
like 59 actually.
Oh,
59 likes, and I'd like to get up to 60 just for it would like
Giggles.
I'd have peace of mind, honestly. I don't know, but
It's a nice
anyhow,
even number.
go like that or subscribe to us somewhere. We're on YouTube. There's like 2 views on YouTube, but
When we get 60 likes,
It's
we'll
'cause I
do
don't-
something 60 years ago that happened. And we'll do a post-podcast about it.
you're making promises now.
Hey, well, as soon as we get that
Okay.
60 likes,
That's all right. There we go. I guess we'll do it.
60
gotta-
years ago,
you gotta stay
we'll
up
pick
on
some
that.
random historical event 60 years ago.
I'm gonna forget, so you got to remember that. But anyhow, if you're listening to us, which you must be.
Yeah.
They must be listening to us if they're hearing this. You can listen to us wherever you're listening to us.
If a
You can
tree
also find
falls.
us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I already said Podbean, Patreon.
I'm going to save you all time. You can find us
Oh,
anywhere. Just Google the
Literally
name
Google NC2 Conspiracy Podcast and
find what
there's
medium
like
works
3
for
pages
you.
of results. It's been working really well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is just find what works for you.
That's true. Find something that works for you, and if there's nothing that works for you, message me, and I will find a way that works for you. I might even email it to you. The
Just
raw
the whole
file.
the whole raw file.
Uncut, we'll call it. But anyhow, We're going to
Maybe
move
you
on
should-
now because we're rolling up on the 50-minute
Maybe
to an
that should be a
hour mark.
reward to our $10 patrons.
That's, we could,
You get the raw uncut.
you get the raw uncut. Nobody would want that at all. Nobody would want that. That would be a punishment. That would be a punishment to the people that give us the most.
That's true.
We like owe them stickers and coffee mugs already, so we can't do that.
Yeah.
We don't give them those and then we punish them. But anyhow, yeah, we're in that sweet spot of 50 minutes to an hour, so we're going to call it quits. But thanks for listening. Leave us a like, a comment, subscribe somewhere.
Wait, subscribe.
Is there anybody out there? There are people out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It turns out. But we're going to move on. We're going to do the podcast now. So if that's something that interests you, we got some stories to tell. So come hang out with us on Patreon. All right. Until next time.
Bye.
You don't got to be weird.